starting the assignment. Anybody?
I
Yes.
can't, I can't say that I have taken a step because I was watching the first class that you had,
Yeah.
and I was trying to compare. I was trying to compare the, should I say, similarities between what you did and the video that you sent to us, because the I think the major problem in the assignment, they said it has to be modularized,
Yeah.
which I have not still understood
Okay.
properly. So I can't say that I've taken a step, but I've looked at it.
Okay. Is there any other person that has taken a step towards the assignment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Um, while trying to do the assignment, one will go many places to actually try to find how to do it. The file structure, because yes, that video you sent has actually helped me understand um, modularization,
Yeah.
because the main.tf that is going to be in the main folder, they are just there as the modules. Then you're now going to create
Exactly.
another main.tf, which you can be creating many other main.tf, linking them to these modules
Exactly.
that you've already created. So I think that's the basic understanding I had when I watched that video. And because I enjoy it, I decided to take almost the whole day to watch the video and create all the things he did. The only place I only had challenge was when I wanted to spin it from my Vagrant machine. It was given me the user is refusing to actually go in, but I still downloaded the previous video that he did where he created the user, and
Okay.
I'm trying to do it. Yes, and so that's where I am right now.
Okay. So for the assignment actually, can someone send the assignment question again to this chat? Okay. Um, it says using Terraform, create an AWS instance, Ubuntu in multiple regions, free tier. That means the machine should be a T2 micro, right? And it should be in the region of EU West 1 and EU Central 1. Those are the two regions it should be in. Now, the second part says that should be on minimum of two availability zones, should be reusable also. Reusable in the sense that you should basically like modularize it so that it can be flexible for other people that want to use your particular script to basically use it without really having to change anything. That means you'll be using a lot of variables. So another thing is can be built on multiple environments, dev slash production, and should have a script that creates Ansible Docker container, and your script should be modularized. And lastly, you should create a VPC for the various environments. So if we look at this, okay, so if we look at this and we see here, we basically have a um, what's it called? A directory here that we first created, which is Terraform dash modules. And inside that directory, we created two other directory. We'll get to the first one in a bit, but let's first look at this modules directory, right? So if I open this modules directory now, you see it has another folder inside, which has the name of VPC. I get to what I'm saying. And this VPC folder has all these files in it. Now, looking at the first file, like the question said, you should create an in-situ instance. This is an in-situ instance, and if you look at every single thing here, it is basically stated in variables, which is the most important thing. It must be reusable. So the AMI is stated in variables, the instance type is in variables, the key pair name is in variables, and the security group, which is the only thing that is not in variable because we are trying to refer it. We also created a security group in this same directory, so we're trying to refer it. Same thing with the AWS subnet ID, right? And the availability zone too. So, and it also said you should create a script. If I'm right, the assignment said you should create a script that helps you run Docker image. So creating a script, the first thing you need to do is to basically update your server. After updating your server, the next thing you want to do is to install Docker, docker.io-y, right? Don't always forget this -y flag because the script will basically hang if you do not add it. So we have installed Docker, we have updated our machine. The next thing we want to do is we now want to start Docker using the systemctl start Docker, and we now also want to enable Docker, which is the second command we also run systemctl enable Docker. And after enabling Docker, this part basically just helps us install Docker. So after installing Docker, the next thing we want to do is to pull the Ansible container right from Docker. So how do we pull it? Docker pull, right? And we're going to be pulling the image. This is the image on Docker, if I'm right. So if you come over to Docker Hub, okay, and you search Ansible, okay, and you search Ansible, this is basically the image you're going to see, right? The Ansible image you're going to see, and as you can see here, it has like over 1 million plus pools. And let's open this, and here you can also see the command for the container to pull the container. This is docker pull ansible slash ansible. Now, but if you want to pull a specific version, you can also pull a specific version. So let's look at the tags. Okay, so right here you can see different tags you can pull basically. And if we basically search for the one that let's see. Okay, so by default, when you type in ansible slash ansible dot latest, it automatically helps you to pull the latest what's it called, ansible container image rather. So all these two, they are also ansible images. This is basically for Ubuntu because I'm guessing that's what is the tag that is behind it here. This is basically for Ubuntu, and you can see a whole different versions of the Ansible image. But for this we're going to be pulling the Ansible latest, this is the image we're going to be pulling. You know, like when you guys were still creating your, what's it called, your virtual or Vagrant on your system. Some people used an image to basically load up the, what's it called, to basically load up the Vagrant machine in a GUI, that is the graphic user interface. So it's just about the same thing here. You basically need an image to run a particular kind of container. So they are almost alike, similar, but the only difference is that the one you are basically getting for Vagrant is very heavy. You can basically see it like 3 gig, but this one that you are getting from Docker is very light. You can see it for like 200 MB. So it's very easy to deploy and very fast also. So now that we have pulled this image, the next thing we want to do is we now want to run this image. We want to use the image to run a particular container. And that's the same thing we're doing here. We're using the docker run command, then the -it, which also stands for interactive, and the dash name, right? The dash name is, we're basically going to give this container a name, and we're going to name this container Ansible underscore container, right? And the -v, which is going to stand for mounting a particular volume. So how this works is that it takes a particular part on your current machine or on your system. Are you getting what I'm saying? It takes a particular part on your system and it mounts that part on the container so that the data is continuous even when the container is no longer available. So here is where you see parts to your playbooks. So we're basically going to change this and we are going to give it a correct path. Let's say something like tilde slash, so let's say the path to this file. Okay, so this is going to be running our home directory. So tilde slash terraform dash what else, terraform modules, that's modules. So we are going to be mounting this exact same path to a path called slash ansible slash playbooks. Are you getting what I'm saying? So we're going to be mounting these two parts together, and after we have attached the volume, the next thing we now want to do is we now want to name the name of the image that we're going to use to create the container, which is what we're doing here. Ansible slash ansible, then latest. As you can see, it's the same thing as this container image that we pulled. So we're using the image to boot up a container. And what the next thing we're doing also is we're also using bin bash as the Ansible command line interface. Are you getting what I'm saying? So one thing you want to add to this whole script, yeah, is at the front of this -it, you want to add like a D there, which stands for detached, meaning that if you run this script without this D, it will just basically run and it will shut down immediately. So this D basically puts it in a detached mode. So when you run it, the container will still basically be there. Are you getting what I'm saying? So you guys might not really understand this now, but when you get into Ansible, Docker rather, you have a better understanding of everything. So like I said, this is here docs that we're using here. So this covers everything from here to here. So that's everything you need to deploy the Ansible slash Docker container. And again, the question, if I'm right, said that we should basically use two environments, which is the dev and the production. Those are the two environments that the assignment said we should use. So down here, we are also using that same environment here, which we are also using tags to give it a name. and whatever you use as your var project. So if the variable you state as your var project is dev, it is going to create the name of the instance as dev dash instance. If the variable you create is production, it's going to be created as production dash instance. So either way, it solves the problem. And after I've looked at the EC2 part, the next part we want to look at is the security group. So the security group is just plain. There's not really anything here. Also, for the name here, we're also using the variable too, right? Like I said, everything has to be reusable. So we're using a variable here, and this is var the project name. So whatever the name of the project is, like I said, production or development, is going to come up here. So when you check a security group, you know that this is a production security group, or this is the development security group. And the ingress rules also, all these ones too, you don't need to basically change anything here. And as you can see below, we are also using the same var or project name for the security group. So it also applies to this. And that's all for the security group. And if you look at the main.tf, which is another very important part, is where we have our VPC, right? So all this is basically a module, right? That's why it's in the modules directory. The module is in the VPC side. All these are modules. They can be reusable over and over again. So if you are creating this particular what's it called? This particular series of services on AWS, and you want to create it on different regions, you can basically use this kind of syntax modules. And here you can also see the AWS VPC, which they said we should create, and we are also giving the AWS VPC the same name as the project name. So if the project is a production based, right, you basically see it here, production dash VPC or development dash VPC. So the CIDR block too, as you can see here, it is also in variables, and the VPC ID we're referring to this one above. We're also giving the internet gateway a variable name. So basically, mostly everything here is going to be in variables. And if you check the AWS underscore VPC dot ID, which is the public subnet one, and like I mentioned before, was in the last class or so, I said when you use data to pull, when you use the data, will I say module or the data resource, or let's just say module, the data module, it basically helps you go to AWS and basically pull down existing data from your AWS account. So what we're doing now is we're using the AWS availability zones, then the availability zone, to pull down the availability zone of the current region that we're going to be in, which we'll get to soon, right? So it's going to help us pull down the availability zone of the current region that we're in. And now if you see, when we are creating our AWS subnet, we are also using the availability zone here. So the data AWS availability zones dot names, and we're using 0. We all know that 0 is basically like 1 in programming languages, right? So if you have 0, 1, 2, 0 is still like, is going to be the first value that is going to be in this availability zone, which is going to be A. So if we're using EU West 1, right, this subnet is going to be assigned with the availability zone of EU West 1A. So that's what 0 basically stands for. And we're also giving it a name, which we're not using variables for. Okay, so we can basically even use variables for this too. So let me see. Coming down here, and we can do something like this. Okay, so okay, so we have the name also present here, and we can do the same thing for the second subnet that we're going to be creating, and we can also type in the same thing here. So subnet dash EZ2, which is availability zone 2, right? And here you can see the same availability zone, data.aws availability zones names, and this is 1, which is also going to be 2. It is going to help us select the second availability zone, which is going to be EU West 1B. Are you getting what I'm saying? So that is what this availability zone is going to be. And we have the VPC ID and the CIDR block for the availability zone 2. And same thing here for the availability zone, for the public subnet rather. For the public subnet 1 and public subnet 2, we have a var CIDR block for it. And if you scroll down here, we also have our route table, which is going to help us route traffic to the outside world. And we are giving it a CIDR block of 0.0.0/0 because this is a public route table. I get what I'm saying. So this is like a constant value. It's not something that you change. That's why it's still in the it's hard coded like that. It's not in a variable. So the same thing here. We're also calling the AWS Internet Gateway, and we can also do the same thing for the route or the resource. So Control V, then route dash table, right? So public route table, and if you scroll down a little bit, we can now associate this route table to each of these subnets. So the first subnet we're going to be attaching it to is the public subnet AZ1, and the second one is going to be public subnet AZ2. So if we do not attach these to any of these subnets, the subnet is automatically a what's it called? The subnet is automatically a private subnet. So the route table is basically what makes it become public. So every other code here is not really useful because here they are creating we're basically going to be creating private subnets which the assignment didn't say we should create. So stopping here is still a very okay assignment. And since we have looked at the main.tf file, we have looked at the ec2.tf file, let's now look at the output.tf file. So the output.tf is basically what is going to is basically the outputs that we're going to receive. Are you getting what I'm saying? Is the outputs we're going to receive. And if you check the project name, the region is going to print out the var.regions, right? It's going to print out the value of this region when the whole Terraform applied runs finish. And the project name too is going to print out the project name. The VPC ID is going to print out the VPC ID, which we're also referring here. And the internet gateway is going to print out the internet gateway. And lastly, we want to print out the public IP address of each instance, so we can basically check if it is active, or we can just go to AWS to check it. So anyone that suits you. And the security group, okay, we have looked at the security group. Lastly is the variables. Now notice that in this modules slash VPC modules directory, we just stated all the variables here. We didn't give them any value. I get what I'm saying. So this whole directory is something that can be reusable by someone that wants to basically run the same thing as us. So we're not giving it any value here. Where we will now basically make value is in the directory where we're going to be running the module. So that is this second directory, and the directory is called ec2-ansible-docker. So if you open this, and let's cancel those out. Let's close this. So if you open this and we open the main.tf file, now you can now see our provider. Note that here we didn't have any provider. I get what I'm saying. The provider is going to be stated in the directory you want to run everything in. So this is our provider, and we have the region, which is same thing as var.region, and it's AWS is the provider we're creating, or we're going to be using rather, and the VPC. Now, in this VPC section, you see that we called it as a module. And we named the module VPC. And now the most important thing after you type that is the source. The most important thing. The source is where exactly is the module that you are trying to refer to. Are you getting what I'm saying? Where is the module present, or where is the module created, or where is the module going to be, or where should Terraform look for this particular module. And if you can see here in double quotes, we have a double dot, then we have a slash module slash VPC. This double dot basically means go up to directories. I get what I'm saying. That means come out from this Ansible Docker directory. So now it will now be in this Terraform directory. That's this one. And when it is here, it should now look for a directory called modules, which is this. And when it opens modules, it should also look for another directory called VPC, which is now this. So that is where to find all our modules, command, our modules file and everything. So now you now see the same, what's it called? The same variables that we stated here. We still have everything here again. Are you getting me? The same modules. Okay, let me see if I can open this. Okay, so like I said, the same modules or the same variables that we had, we still stated everything here again in the modules directory or in the module space. So if you now go down to variables.tf, the same variables we had here, we copy and paste them in a new file in the directory we want to run everything. In a variables.tf file, we still paste every single thing here again. And after that, we're now going to be giving values to all these variables in the Terraform, in a file called terraform.tf vars. So when we open terraform.tf vars, that's where we see all our modules. Are you getting what I'm saying? This is where we see
Yes,
all our
copy is
modules.
recording.
Yeah. This is where we see all our modules, from the region that we want to use, to the project name, to the VPC CIDR, to the public subnet, every single module that variable that we created. This is where we see every single thing. And we can now give it a value here. Are you getting what I'm saying? So now this is where the explanation basically comes in. Are you getting me? So they said you should create it in 2 regions. They didn't say basically how you should do it. Are you getting what I'm saying? So now you can basically make this flexible. First thing you can do is you can leave this region as US East 1, then run the Terraform script. Then after that is created, you can change this region and run it again. I get what I'm saying. It automatically creates in the second region. So both ways it still work. It is reusable. And the same thing is the project name. When you are basically changing the project name, so note that in the US, okay, let me just create like a small note here. In the US East 1, it is going to be giving the project name of dev. I get what I'm saying. And what is basically the second so the next one is in the EU Central 1, is going to be giving the environment of production. Are you getting what I'm saying? So when you are trying to change this, when you change this to the region, when you change the region to EU Central 1, you should also change the project name. Are you getting what I'm saying? You should also change the project name to production, right? And another thing you should also note is that the AMI, that's why it's basically empty here. The AMI that is here, your AMI changes with the your AMI changes if the region changes. Are you getting what I'm saying? So you guys should also understand that too. Your AMI is going to change if the region that you are basically using, or the current region that you are using, changes. So it cannot basically be the same thing. For instance, if you go to the US East 1 region and you check for the Ubuntu AMI, I showed you guys how to check for the Ubuntu AMI. If you check for the Ubuntu AMI in the US East 1 and you go to the EU Central 1 and do the same thing and check for the Ubuntu AMI, you will see that it is not the same thing. So if you try running that particular AMI in the US East 1, you will definitely get an error. So that's another thing you should do. So you should just take write that down somewhere Either you go to AWS and copy out the two different AMI for the two different what's it called, regions, right? You can copy it down, and when you are running each region, you put the specific AMI to that region here. That's the Ubuntu AMI. You put it here, and with that said, also you can see the key pair. You can see the key pair, and the key pairs too is another thing to talk about, because it's not just only the what's it called, the AMI that change. The key pairs too also change. So the key pairs too also change. So if you create a key pair in the US East one, you won't see that key pair in the EU Central one. Are you getting what I'm saying? So that's another thing you guys should look out for. So when you are basically creating your Terraform script, this is the only place you need to make changes to. Every other thing, just leave it as it is. That's why it's called a module. It's reusable. This is the only place you need to make changes to. So when you're looking at the key pair, you will need to basically create these key pairs before you even try running um, what's it called?
Hello, sir.
Yeah,
Hello, sir.
yeah.
Yeah. Since we are going to be deploying and it's supposed to create those things, are we not? I'm asking a question. Are we not able to copy this thing and paste and then do for the central one in the same folder so that when it's deploying, we can get all those parameters from the different centers and then be able to deploy them at the same time? Must we run once and then change again?
Mm, you can basically, let me see. So you're trying to say that you can create another file here, Abi, and put the other one for the.
Yeah, either creating another file, or here if we copy and paste and then change the parameters here, will it not work? I don't know. So I'm
Okay,
asking
what
the
parameters
question.
are you talking about?
Okay, like if we copy for the region one and
Okay,
paste, just like you are telling us the things that will change,
yeah.
and then we copy and paste and then change for that region. Yeah.
Okay, that's basically the same thing I'm saying now. I mean,
Okay.
one thing I'm not
Okay, sir.
actually sure of is if you can create another file, right? Like this one is terraform.tfvars. If you can create another file called terraform, or let's say you change this name from terraform.tfvars to like um region1.tfvars,
One verse.
then you can create a region2.tfvars,
Yes.
and when you're trying to run the what's it called, the terraform what's the name of this thing, the terraform apply, you can now
In it.
point
Yeah.
the terraform um, commands or terraform modules to a particular variable file. Are you getting what I'm saying? So let's see something first. Let me see if it's possible. You can ask a question.
Um, Sorry, my question will have to take you back to VS Code.
Okay.
So I saw here in the TF vars, it's almost similar to the video that you sent to us, but
Yeah.
I saw where you referenced the variable that type that has T2 micro. I also saw okay, the T2 micro and the AMI. I didn't when I watched the video and tried to reproduce what he did, I did not actually see where to put. Okay, like the first class you had on this thing,
Yeah.
you had a file called ec2.tf.
Mm-hmm.
At least that one now made it clear that okay, but I did not particularly see. Okay, I did not particularly see it here until now. Anyways,
Is it in the video you're
so
talking
this
about?
yeah, I was looking for the file that's actually talking
Oh,
about the instances.
the video that I sent, there was no instance created.
Yeah.
So this one has an instance. So we need to also try to make the instance or the file that we're creating the instance in something reusable. That's why we have the AMI ID, the type as a variable also, and the key pair.
Okay, okay. I get it now. I was just I didn't see it, so I was
Okay,
wondering because I had to watch the video at least twice to see if I missed it.
okay. Um, Adedeji, you were raising your hand before.
Good evening, mentor.
Yeah, good evening.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask is similar to what Luca just talked about. I wanted to ask about the dev and the production area. That
Okay.
is it not possible for us to? Is it not possible for us to run both in the same time and in the same folder?
Um, no, it's
And for the sorry, another one more thing. For the Terraform.cf files, so
okay.
are we going to check for the resources in terraform.io to know if we can rename terraform.cf files with our two region, because at times it might not be, if it is not stated in the registry that we can change the name, it might give us error when we are running our.
Yeah, the constant thing you cannot change there is the .cf vars, right? You can change the name, the font name. So that's basically what I want to basically check, right? So if we can see if it is possible that we can, when while we're running the Terraform script, we can point it to a particular TF vars file, then we can now create the two um what's it called? The two values that we currently have. That's the EU Central one and the US East one.
One more thing again, sorry, mentor.
Yeah,
For our Docker and Ansible container, we are supposed to have it in both region that we are creating.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
yeah. So the Docker and the Ansible this thing. This is a module. So what we're doing is we're just using this module and we're automatically like automating it in both regions. So when you change this region to the US East one, it will automatically create that instance with the Docker and everything in the US East one.
Thank you.
Okay, so this can also work using the Terraform apply dash var dash file then equals to the name of the variables file you want to run. I get what I'm saying. So we can just do that here instead of all this new file. We can do something like region dash one dot tfvars, and we can basically change this to region dash two dot tfvars. So in our region two is where we're going to be running
Sorry,
the
mentor.
yeah.
Sorry, please. Yes, so this is good. If we can have region one, then definitely some of us can either use maybe Lagos and Abuja .tfr. Is it possible also?
Uh, okay, so this region one and region two is not is basically for the EU Central one. This region 2 is for EU Central 1, while the region 1 is for US East 1, which is
Yes, I
changeable.
know, but
Okay.
what I'm just saying is,
If the name is
uh,
changeable, you can change the name.
yeah, change.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely, you can change the name if you want to. But just know
Okay,
that this .tf files does not change. But anything before the .tf files, you can change it.
and we have to call it in our variable as well.
Yeah, so if you're running it, it's something like this: Terraform apply dash var dash file, then equals to the name of the file you want to call, which is in this case region dash one dot tf files. I get what I'm saying. Then we can now do something like dash dash auto dash approve. So this is if you want to run any of the files, you can basically do it this way. Pick the region 1 or use the region 2. So the next thing we're going to look at is the EU Central 1. This is what we're going to use as production space. I get what I'm saying. And the AMI for the EU Central 1, we're going to be getting that. Okay, can someone help me check the AMI for the EU Central 1 and for the US East 1? Can someone help me check the AMI for the EU Central 1? That's the Ubuntu AMI. I showed you guys how to check AMI earlier. Can someone help me check the AMI for the EU Central 1 and for the US East 1? And also, another thing is when you are creating these stores, I get what I'm saying. Your key pair, you should have this key pair already created in your region, in the current region that you're in. So if you're in the US East 1, you can change this key pair to the name, like I told you guys before, the exact name that you created um on your region, on your AWS region, right? And you should also have that key pair locally with you, because that's the key pair you're going to use to, if you want to SSH into this instance, that's the key pair you're going to use. I get what I'm saying. So you are going to basically need it. So you should have it created. So is anybody coming up with the AMI?
Yeah, I'm trying to get it.
Okay.
I'm trying to get it. Which one are you getting? Wait,
What's that first region? EU.
West one.
Just do EU. Yeah,
Yeah, mentor. Before they get the AMI, I just want to ask a brief question. Um, see, it may be a little bit apart from what we are doing, but I just want to know when you are given an assignment, just like this one we are giving,
Okay.
how do you know how many files that project or that assignment really needs? Like this one now, you created so many files. How were you able, you know, to come up with it? Okay, it's going to need main.tfr, it's going to need a variable.tfr, it's going to need, stuff like that, you know. Guys,
So like I said
how can
before,
one, yeah,
and like I've always
yeah,
said before, if you understand Terraform, the point is not forget the files now. I get what I'm saying. Forget every single thing you're
okay,
saying here. All these
okay,
things are just trash. I get what I'm saying. The most important thing is, do you understand exactly what Terraform is and what it does? When you understand what
okay,
Terraform is and you understand the whole structure of Terraform, you will definitely know when to create a particular kind of file.
Okay.
I get what I'm
Okay.
saying. So now, like you said, how did I create all these files? Obviously, we should know that while creating like a Terraform, what's it called? A Terraform, let's say a small script or the certain kind of files you need to create in Terraform, just like Ansible, right? That will
Yeah.
definitely make your Terraform, is it directory or script to work perfectly. Is number one, you definitely need a variables file, variable.tf, right?
Okay.
And you need a main.tf file. These are the two most important files. So
Okay.
what the main.tf basically hosts the provider, are you getting me? Is
Okay.
like a default practice. It's basically holds the provider. That is what the main.tf file does. And you can create any other thing in the main.tf file, but it's not really,
Okay.
really supported like that. So if you
Okay.
are now asked to create like I said, if you understand exactly what Terraform is, you know that Terraform can be used to deploy almost any service to AWS or any cloud provider you want.
Okay.
So you can basically just focus on the services. So now if you are trying to create like an EC2 instance, are you getting what
Yeah.
I'm saying? You can do it two ways. You can either paste the configuration to the EC2 instance in this directory, main.tf, or you can create a new file, call it ec2.tf. Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
So it just depends on you and exactly what you want to do. So, like I said before, it is possible, sir, for you to take everything, these four, is it 4 or 5 files that I created here? You can copy everything and put it into just one file. It is possible. Are you getting me? But just for best practice, we are trying to make everything readable and um, understanding for anybody that wants to open any file.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
the most important thing I'll just tell you is understand exactly what Terraform is, because all these
For
things,
me.
they are just nonsense, honestly. The most important thing is, do you really know what Terraform is and what it does? If you really know what it is and what it does, you know exactly the kind of files to create. So
Okay.
there's basically no problem with it. And it might
Okay,
take
sir.
time, but that's not any problem. You will still definitely
Okay.
understand it.
Okay, sir. That one.
Okay, somebody sent the EU West one. Okay, let's copy this and let's come over here where we have EU West one and place the EMI ID here. And another person sent for EU Central one. Okay, it was still the same person. Okay, let's copy this and let's come over here and let's place this here. So with this, you don't have to basically change or delete everything. Everything is automatically here also. We have everything here. So like I said, when you're running your script, you just follow this module dash var dash file equals to the name of the module you want to run, or the what's it called, the var file you want to run. And again, one last thing you guys should know before this call basically ends, one last thing you guys should know is that what I basically told you guys and showed you guys how to use AWS configure. That is, you need to install AWS CLI. I get what I'm saying. And using AWS configure, you also need to make a change there. So normally, when you run your normal AWS configure, you need to put in your access key and your secret access key. I get what I'm saying. And you also need to put in a region. So after running a particular, let's say you run this first region, that's region one, and you set the default region in your AWS configure to US East 1. I get what I'm saying. You can run the first region. After running the first region, you basically need to do AWS configure again to change the region that is currently there, and you have to change it to this what's it called, EU Central 1 region. Then you can now run the EU Central 1 Terraform VAS file. I get what I'm saying. So you need to make changes also in the AWS configure. which is something that's not hard. You're just changing the region name. I get what I'm saying. And yeah, with that said, I guess that's basically everything. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have
No, I
any
don't have any,
question?
I don't have a question because it's a bit easy to follow considering the video I watched the first time.
Exactly. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll give you guys access to this file, right? I'll give you guys access to this file, and you can basically use it to run the whole task and everything. If you have any issues or any question, you can basically ask. You can basically ask in the mastermind group, and definitely I'll reply to your questions. Um, in our next class, we're going to be looking deeply into. Okay, there's no time for the project yet, Abby.
Wednesday next week.
Yeah, they said that's the assignment, but the mini project they said is going to be our holiday project.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
in our next class, we're not going to be looking at the mini projects. We're going to be looking at our the assignment I basically gave on Ansible. So, hope you guys have done it before then. This call is going to end in the next 5 seconds. So
Yeah,
we
yeah, I've
can
done it. Oh, I wanted to ask a question. Oh God.
send it in the group. Okay. So for those that haven't subscribed to Cloud.g YouTube channel, you can basically do that now. You can do that now. And if you are also interested in joining the mastermind, you can send me a DM with you are interested in joining the mastermind. With that said, see you in our next video.